Welcome to a new episode of Cheaters Always Cheat. Like, subscribe, and share to stay connected.
As I approach the milestone of turning 60, I find myself reflecting on the journey that has led me here. Among the many memories, one stands out vividly: the arrival of my first grandchild 3 years ago. Throughout my life, I've encountered a diverse range of individuals from all walks of life, each leaving their unique mark on my experiences. Yet, amidst this colorful array of characters, one person stands out in my mind, none other than my own wife. Despite our age difference, my wife's youthful spirit often leads her to prioritize her own desires, sometimes at the expense of others. Her determination can be both admirable and exasperating, as she navigates life with unwavering forcefulness. Despite my attempts to reason with her, her ways remain unchanged, leaving me to resign myself to her quirks. However, recent events have tested the limits of my patience and understanding. Turning back the clock 3 years, the arrival of my grandson brought new challenges and responsibilities. When my son and his wife approached us for childcare assistance, I hesitated, unsure if my wife was the best choice for the task. Despite my reservations, she agreed to help, and I reluctantly went along with it. As my retirement drew nearer, I anticipated spending quality time with my grandson, supporting my wife when needed. However, as time passed, it became clear that my wife's approach to childcare was not suitable. Despite our best efforts, the situation escalated, leading to the relocation of my son's family nearby and our increased involvement in childcare duties. Thus, the story unfolds, marked by moments of uncertainty, doubt, and ultimately, disappointment in the person entrusted with caring for our family's newest member. He was a little over a year old, still wobbly on his feet as he navigated the exciting terrain of newfound mobility. His cherubic face, adorned with a mischievous grin, melted my heart instantaneously. Seeing him brought a flood of memories rushing back, reminiscent of when my son was at that tender age. The resemblance between them was striking, evoking a profound sense of nostalgia and warmth. Despite a looming agenda, I couldn't resist the allure of spending quality time with my grandson before tending to other tasks. Engaging in a playful game of pretend chase around the house, his giggles echoing through the halls, filled the air with an infectious joy that swept away any sense of urgency. Amidst the laughter, we explored his treasure trove of beloved toys, each one a vessel of imagination and delight. As our impromptu game reached its crescendo, a faint creak signaled the opening of the front door. Expecting the arrival of a visitor, I ventured to investigate, only to find my wife's silhouette fading into the distance. Initially assuming she had stepped out briefly for routine errands, I watched the minutes tick by, growing increasingly perplexed by her prolonged absence. Minutes turned into an eternity as I anxiously awaited her return, the passage of time marked by a disconcerting silence that hung heavy in the air. Concern gnawed at the edges of my consciousness, prompting a hesitant call to her mobile device in search of reassurance. Yet, my efforts were met with an unsettling void, her absence compounded by the lack of response from the other end of the line. With each passing moment, the urgency of my impending engagements loomed larger, casting a shadow of frustration over the unresolved situation. Despite my repeated attempts to reach her, the void remained unyielding, leaving me stranded in a state of uncertainty and mounting concern. Though I had communicated my schedule clearly, the absence of communication on her part only deepened the sense of bewilderment and frustration. Feeling the weight of impending lateness bearing down upon me like an unwelcome burden, I reluctantly dialed my friend's number, a tinge of apology lacing my voice as I explained my predicament. My scheduled rendezvous with him was now hanging in limbo, a casualty of my current situation, stranded at home, tasked with the unexpected responsibility of tending to my grandson. Despite my attempts to reach her, my wife remained elusive, her absence casting a shadow of uncertainty over our plans. My friend's understanding response offered a brief reprieve from the mounting frustration, his reassurance a small comfort in the face of unforeseen circumstances. Yet, beneath his placid acceptance lingered a sense of unease, a gnawing worry that my last-minute cancellation might tarnish my reliability in his eyes, even though the fault lay squarely with my absent wife. With each passing minute, the simmering frustration I harbored towards my wife threatened to boil over, the delay in her return amplifying my discontent. It was not until the late afternoon hours that she finally reappeared, her casual demeanor belying the disruption her absence had caused. Anger simmered beneath the surface as I confronted her, demanding an explanation for her prolonged absence and the subsequent fallout it had wrought upon our plans. Her nonchalant response only served to fuel my indignation, her flippant dismissal of my concerns a stark reminder of the gulf that divided our perspectives. Frustration mingled with disappointment as I watched her interaction with our grandson, her fleeting presence a stark contrast to the enduring responsibility she had shirked. Despite my internal turmoil, a sense of restraint held me back from airing my grievances openly, wary of the potential conflict that awaited. Instead, I stewed in silence, watching as my suspicions regarding her lack of commitment to our grandson's care were confirmed with each passing day. The facade of her involvement crumbled under scrutiny, revealing a pattern of superficial gestures masking a deeper neglect of her responsibilities. Her fleeting appearances during my grandson's stay served as mere tokens of participation, a thin veneer of involvement that dissolved upon closer inspection. Though her words promised a swift return, her actions painted a different picture, punctuated by prolonged absences that left me questioning her priorities. With each departure, her assurances rang hollow, a stark reminder of the breach of trust that lingered between us. I confronted her, my frustration boiling over as I demanded an explanation for her blatant disregard of the commitment she had made. Her response was a defensive volley, laced with defiance as she refuted any suggestion of prior agreement, shifting the blame squarely onto my shoulders. The exchange grew increasingly heated as accusations flew back and forth, each of us entrenched in our own perspective. Her words cut deep, a sharp reminder of the weight of responsibility that now rested solely on my shoulders. Yet, amidst the turmoil, her assertion rang hollow, a stark contrast to the expectations of shared duty that come with the role of grandparent. It was a bitter pill to swallow, the realization that the idyllic vision of grandparenthood I had cherished was crumbling before my eyes. As the argument escalated, the divide between us widened, each of us entrenched in our respective positions. Despite my attempts to reason with her, she remained steadfast in her refusal to acknowledge her part in the matter. It was a sobering realization, a stark reminder of the complexities that lurked beneath the surface of our relationship. The tension between us reached a fever pitch, the air thick with unresolved conflict and simmering resentment. It was a far cry from the retirement I had envisioned, a stark departure from the tranquil existence I had hoped to embrace. Instead of leisurely pursuits and moments of relaxation, I found myself embroiled in a battle of wills, grappling with the harsh reality of unmet expectations. With each passing moment, the weight of disappointment settled upon me like a heavy shroud, casting a pall over the once promising prospect of retirement. The realization dawned upon me with startling clarity. The idyllic vision of grandparenthood I had harbored was but a fleeting dream, shattered by the harsh realities of life. Yet, amidst the turmoil, a glimmer of resolve flickered to life within me, a determination to navigate this unexpected turn of events with grace and resilience. Though the road ahead appeared fraught with challenges, I remained steadfast in my commitment to rise above the discord and find a path forward. For, in the face of adversity, it is often the strength of our resolve that guides us through the darkest of days. Her justifications seemed to lack coherence, veering into a realm of shared responsibility that felt entirely one-sided. While she professed to be occupied with household tasks and errands, the reality painted a starkly different picture. Most of her day seemed to vanish into the ether, leaving mere morsels of actual time spent attending to our grandson's needs. Moreover, her grasp on financial fairness was equally tenuous, as she siphoned the lion's share of the compensation for her purported caregiving duties. My daughter-in-law's payments, intended to offset the costs associated with childcare, were subject to a disproportionate division, with the bulk landing in my wife's pocket. Despite my protests against this gross imbalance, she staunchly defended her claim to the lion's share, citing her additional household chores as justification. It felt like a battle of wills, with my attempts to reason falling on deaf ears as she clung stubbornly to her stance. Confrontations over financial matters only served to deepen the rift between us, with my wife steadfast in her belief that her contributions warranted a larger share of the compensation. Her insistence on the segregation of retirement funds from her personal income further muddied the waters, leaving me feeling helpless in the face of her unwavering resolve. It was a frustrating impasse, one that left me questioning the very foundation of our partnership. Despite my best efforts to navigate the situation with diplomacy and reason, my frustration continued to mount. At my age, the prospect of squabbling over such trivial matters felt absurd, a stark departure from the peaceful retirement I had envisioned. The toll of these ongoing conflicts weighed heavily on my spirit, sapping the joy from what should have been a serene chapter of my life. Yet, amidst the turmoil, moments of respite emerged, offering brief reprieves from the relentless tension. In the warmth of the sun's embrace, my grandson and I found solace in simple pleasures, embarking on leisurely strolls and frolicking in the playground. It was during these moments of shared laughter and exploration that I found refuge from the tumult of domestic discord, cherishing the fleeting moments of serenity amidst the chaos. As I whiled away an afternoon at the park, enjoying the sunshine and the laughter of children, a chance encounter introduced me to Evelyn, a fellow grandparent immersed in the joyful chaos of caring for her grandchild. Despite her title as a grandmother, Evelyn defied traditional expectations of age, her vitality and youthful demeanor belying the passing years. It was a delightful surprise to discover that she was only a few years my senior, a testament to the timeless bond shared between grandparents and their beloved grandchildren. In the midst of our shared responsibilities, Evelyn and I found common ground, bonding over the joys and challenges of raising the next generation. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, traversing topics ranging from the intricacies of childcare to the simple pleasures of playtime. Despite our divergent paths in life, we discovered a shared camaraderie born from the shared experience of grandparenthood. As our grandkids frolicked amidst the playground equipment, their laughter mingling with the gentle breeze, I marveled at the sight of Robbie embracing the company of his newfound friend. While he relished our adventures together, there was an undeniable spark in his eyes as he interacted with children his own age, particularly Evelyn's granddaughter. It was heartwarming to witness the blossoming friendship between them, a testament to the universal language of childhood camaraderie. Our time at the park served as a backdrop for shared experiences and newfound connections, bridging the gap between generations with each passing moment. As we exchanged stories and laughter, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the serendipitous encounter that had brought Evelyn into my life. In her, I found not only a kindred spirit but also a source of inspiration and companionship on this grand adventure of grandparenthood. My newfound friendship with Evelyn blossomed beyond the confines of the park, extending into our daily lives as we exchanged phone numbers and made plans to rendezvous with our grandchildren in tow. One fateful day, Evelyn's call brought news of an exciting opportunity at the local library, where a sensory development class for young children was set to commence. Intrigued by the prospect of enriching Robbie's learning experience, I eagerly accepted her invitation to join the session. The class exceeded all expectations, offering a stimulating blend of educational activities and hands-on experiences designed to engage the senses of young minds. From intricate 3D puzzles to interactive displays, the environment fostered a sense of curiosity and exploration that left our grandchildren enraptured. Witnessing their joyous engagement with the material, I couldn't help but marvel at the advancements in childhood education since my own son's youth. Expressing my delight at the class's success, I inquired about the possibility of future sessions, eager to continue Robbie's developmental journey. Evelyn's revelation that the library hosted weekly classes sent a surge of excitement through me, prompting us to enroll our grandkids in the ongoing program. Thus began our weekly pilgrimage to the library, where Robbie eagerly embraced each new learning opportunity with boundless enthusiasm. As our routine solidified, logistical challenges arose, prompting me to offer Evelyn a ride to the library to ease the burden of parking woes. This small gesture of solidarity cemented our bond, transforming our weekly outings into shared adventures filled with laughter and companionship. In return for my assistance, Evelyn showered Robbie with tokens of her affection, from homemade treats to handcrafted knickknacks, each gesture a testament to her generous spirit. For a blissful 6 months, our friendship blossomed amidst the backdrop of shared experiences and mutual support, enriching our lives in ways we never could have imagined. From impromptu outings to heartfelt gestures of kindness, our bond grew stronger with each passing day, a testament to the enduring power of friendship and the joy found in simple moments shared with loved ones. Everything was sailing smoothly until a storm brewed on the horizon, heralded by my wife's unexpected intrusion into our tranquil existence. On that fateful day, while I was ensconced at home with Robbie, my wife embarked on her usual outing, but instead of her customary shopping spree, she ventured to Evelyn's abode. What unfolded next was a tempest of accusations, as my wife unleashed a barrage of unfounded allegations, accusing Evelyn of nefarious intentions aimed at sabotaging our marriage. It seemed my wife's suspicions had been ignited by the bond Evelyn and I had forged during our frequent visits to the park. In her mind, spending time together equated to infidelity, a conclusion she was all too eager to embrace without a shred of evidence. Her outburst attracted the attention of Evelyn's husband, who emerged from their home to quell the commotion, only to be met with a barrage of accusations from my wife. In her fervor to assign blame, my wife turned her ire towards Evelyn's husband, chastising him for his supposed ignorance and neglect. With pointed fingers and raised voices, she hurled accusations at him, oblivious to the absurdity of her claims. Yet, amidst the chaos, it was evident that my wife's accusations were unfounded, born from a place of insecurity and baseless suspicion. In the aftermath of the confrontation, I found myself grappling with the fallout of my wife's irrational behavior, struggling to reconcile her actions with the reality of our situation. It was a sobering reminder of the fragility of trust and the destructive power of unfounded accusations. Despite my attempts to reason with her, my wife remained steadfast in her delusions, unwilling to acknowledge the harm her accusations had wrought upon our relationships. As I reflected on the events that had transpired, I couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief at the reckless disregard for truth and evidence displayed by my wife. Her actions had unleashed a whirlwind of chaos, leaving a trail of mistrust and resentment in their wake. It was a stark reminder that even the strongest bonds can be tested by the capricious whims of suspicion and jealousy. The echoes of my wife's screams reverberated through the neighborhood, a cacophony of anger and accusation that shattered the tranquility of Evelyn's once peaceful existence. I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for Evelyn, a kind soul thrust into the midst of a tumultuous storm she had no part in creating. Her usually serene demeanor was eclipsed by the chaos of my wife's outburst, leaving her bewildered and distressed in its wake. Amidst the chaos, Evelyn's husband attempted to interject, offering an explanation for his wife's presence at their home, a simple act of babysitting their granddaughter. Yet, my wife remained steadfast in her belief that there was more to the story, her suspicions fueled by a potent cocktail of insecurity and unfounded paranoia. As the dust settled on the explosive confrontation, Evelyn reached out to me, seeking solace and understanding in the aftermath of my wife's irrational behavior. Her voice trembled with disbelief as she recounted the events of the previous day, her confusion mirroring my own as we grappled with the fallout of my wife's actions. Listening to Evelyn's account, I was overcome with a profound sense of remorse and guilt, realizing the extent of the harm my wife had inflicted upon her. I could offer nothing but apologies, expressing my heartfelt regret for the pain and turmoil she had endured as a result of my wife's unfounded accusations. In the midst of my apologies, I offered to intervene, to confront my wife and attempt to unravel the tangled web of misunderstanding that had led to this unfortunate situation. Yet, Evelyn's response was a poignant reminder of the volatility of the situation, urging caution and restraint in the face of my wife's escalating behavior. With a heavy heart, I acquiesced to Evelyn's request, agreeing to sever our communication in a bid to protect her from further harm. As I bid her farewell, I couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness and loss, recognizing the toll that my wife's actions had taken on our relationship and the bonds of trust we had once shared. Let's agree to play it cool and pretend we're strangers, especially if we run into each other at the park. It's strange to think that at my age, I'd experience something like that, where someone screams at me so loudly that the whole neighborhood hears it. It was truly humiliating. I had no inkling of what was going on in my wife's head. I made sure to sincerely apologize one last time to Evelyn before ending the call. She was such a kind woman. Despite both of us dealing with similar situations of watching our grandkids, we formed a genuine friendship beyond that. But leave it to my wife to mess things up, even for herself. This was definitely a new low for her. The chaos wasn't just confined to Evelyn and her family. When my wife returned from visiting Evelyn, my daughter-in-law was arriving to pick up Robbie. She looked frantic and immediately called out to my son, demanding a family meeting at the kitchen table. At that point, I had no clue what had transpired or where my wife had been. This was before I had the chance to talk to Evelyn on the phone. So, I sat there, perplexed, as my wife began to shout accusations, claiming, "You're useless. Your father is having an affair." The words hung heavy in the air, and I couldn't help but feel a mixture of shock and disbelief. It was like a bombshell had been dropped in the middle of our family gathering, leaving us all reeling from the fallout. We were all left stunned, staring at my wife in disbelief. It was an utterly audacious accusation she had thrown into the air. The shock and confusion hung heavy in the room, palpable in the air. In the midst of our collective astonishment, my daughter-in-law interjected, her voice tinged with concern and confusion. "Mom, what on earth are you talking about?" My wife proceeded to produce a photograph, seemingly taken surreptitiously, capturing a moment of Evelyn and me seated together on a bench at the park. As if that wasn't enough, she brandished more images, depicting us in various settings, including inside a car. My son and daughter-in-law's eyes widened as they examined the damning evidence presented before them. With unwavering confidence, my wife declared, pointing at the photos, "Look at this. Your father, the deadbeat, spending all his time with some stranger." She went on, detailing her so-called research into Evelyn's life, painting her as a conniving individual using her grandchild as a pretext to pursue an illicit relationship with me. According to my wife's narrative, they were gallivanting around town together, shamelessly flaunting their supposed affair for all to see. With a flourish, she tossed another photograph onto the table, depicting what she claimed to be evidence of their clandestine rendezvous at the library. According to my wife's twisted logic, they were using their innocent grandchildren as unwitting accomplices in their deceitful escapades. Arms crossed and a smug expression adorning her face, she awaited our response to her amateur detective work. In the midst of this surreal spectacle, my son and daughter-in-law turned to me, their expressions a mixture of concern and disbelief. It was clear that my wife's baseless accusations had cast a dark shadow over our family, leaving us grappling with the repercussions of her unfounded suspicions. Their eyes bore into me, silently asking, "Dad, how could you betray us like this?" It pained me to see the accusation reflected in their gaze, painting me as a deceitful old man. Though I knew the accusations were baseless, I found myself at a loss for words to defend myself against my wife's unfounded claims. I felt a desperate need to speak up, but shock rendered me speechless. After what felt like an eternity of stunned silence, I finally gathered my thoughts. An affair? How could you even suggest such a thing? I recounted the innocent circumstances under which I had interacted with Evelyn, emphasizing our shared involvement in activities centered around our grandchildren. Yet, my explanations fell on deaf ears. In her eyes, I was already guilty, regardless of the truth. She railed against me, accusing me of betrayal and casting aspersions on my character. According to her, I had been lured into infidelity by a mere offering of cookies, painted as a weak-minded pawn in Evelyn's supposed scheme. Her accusations grew wilder, fueled by her unwavering conviction of my guilt. Her relentless interrogation left me reeling, grappling with the absurdity of her accusations. She wasn't just leaping to conclusions, she was pole-vaulting over rationality in her quest to uncover a non-existent affair. Despite my attempts to reason with her, she remained steadfast in her belief, refusing to entertain any notion of innocence on my part. In a futile attempt to reason with her, I pleaded my case, emphasizing the utter lack of evidence to support her accusations. Yet, she remained obstinate, refusing to entertain any notion of innocence on my part. "I won't stand here and allow you to tarnish my name," I declared, frustration lacing my words. "Your unfounded assumptions are unacceptable. You need to stop this nonsense immediately." Despite my protests, she persisted in hurling baseless accusations my way, each one more outlandish than the last. As a final effort to defend myself, I reiterated the simple truth: Evelyn was nothing more than a friend. Our paths had crossed innocently, through our grandchildren's budding friendship at the park. I reminded her of the innocuous activities we had shared, such as attending classes at the library together. Yet, it seemed my words fell on deaf ears, as my wife remained steadfast in her belief of my guilt. With each passing moment, her tirade grew more intense, her accusations more vehement. "I've never known a cheater to confess outright," she sneered, dismissing my protests as mere fabrications. "Of course, you'd concoct an elaborate story to absolve yourself. That's what cheaters do, spin tales to evade responsibility." Despite my best efforts to reason with her, my wife's conviction remained unshakable. It was clear that no amount of explanation or protestation would sway her from her misguided belief. In her eyes, I was already guilty, regardless of the truth. It was a disheartening realization, leaving me feeling powerless in the face of her unwavering accusations. "I've come across plenty of people who've been in affairs, so don't try to play innocent. You two were always together, hanging out day after day. Do you really think I'm that clueless? I've seen women like her before, pretending to be sweet to get close to a man, only to use him for his money. And you, being the trusting person you are, fell for her tricks from the get-go. Now, I'm taking control of our finances. Hand over all your debit and credit cards, and don't forget the money we make from looking after Robbie. It's all mine from now on, understand?" But I stood my ground, refusing to agree to her demands. I'd already given her access to one account, where we'd agreed to put half of my retirement money as our main source of funds. I wasn't about to let her control my personal account, though. She argued back, insisting that she had to take charge to prevent that awful woman from getting her hands on the money. She kept repeating how it had to be done her way, ignoring my protests entirely. "It's like you're not even hearing me," I said, frustrated. "I can't keep explaining the same thing over and over." Turning to my son and his wife, I expressed my exasperation. "Your mother is completely disconnected from reality. You two should leave. I'll deal with her from here." As I watched my son and his family leave, I realized the situation was getting worse. They seemed to be siding with my wife, believing her accusations against me. It left me feeling drained, with a pounding headache throbbing at my temples. After they left, the confrontation with my wife continued. I couldn't understand how she could make such accusations in front of them. She was adamant, claiming she had all the evidence she needed. "Look at this," she said, showing me pictures of Evelyn and me spending time together. "Having an affair at your age," she accused. I couldn't contain my frustration. "I'm the one taking care of Robbie all by myself," I retorted. "Starting tomorrow, you're going to watch him. No more excuses. It's time for you to step up." But she refused, insisting she wouldn't let me off the hook. "I don't trust you on your own," she declared. "You're going to be at home with Robbie." End of story. It was a low blow to use our grandchild as a pawn in her accusations. The whole situation left me feeling awful. Even if I were having an affair, getting caught wouldn't feel as bad as being falsely accused. My retirement turned into a nightmare. It felt like I was losing my sanity. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. About 2 months later, things took an unexpected turn. My 50-year-old wife discovered she was pregnant. She had realized something was amiss when her periods became irregular. She thought it was due to menopause, but it turned out to be something entirely different. She started feeling sick, much like she did when she was pregnant with our son years ago. A visit to the doctor confirmed her suspicion: she was pregnant. Surprisingly, I hadn't noticed any signs that she might be expecting. Our relationship took a nosedive after she accused me of having an affair. We hardly spoke more than a few words to each other. Our closeness hit rock bottom. She barely acknowledged my presence, except for one unexpected instance. Out of the blue, she approached me with affection, something she hadn't done in years. I was taken aback and asked her what had brought this on. Despite knowing it was wrong, I gave in to her advances, leading to a night of passion we hadn't shared in years. A month later, she woke me up with surprising news: she was pregnant. I was utterly shocked and blurted out, "Pregnant at your age?" She chuckled and reminded me that she was just 50, not as old as I was making her out to be. She reassured me, saying it wasn't uncommon for women her age to have babies. I was skeptical, thinking a man my age shouldn't be so easily able to get a woman pregnant. I insisted there must be some mistake. But my wife assured me that given a considerable amount of time since her last encounter, it was entirely possible for her to become pregnant. She firmly instructed me to stop expressing doubts, emphasizing that regardless of my disbelief, the situation was real. At first, I was stunned and disheartened. The thought of becoming a father again at the age of 60 left me in a whirlwind of emotions. However, as I pondered the idea, I began to feel more and more thrilled. Reflecting on my grandson, who was an absolute joy, I imagined the new addition to our family would be just as delightful. I realized that the timing of a child's arrival doesn't really matter. They deserve love and care regardless. While some might raise eyebrows at the idea of us having a baby at our age, I was unfazed. I was prepared to shower this child with all the love in my heart, regardless of others' opinions. Turning to my wife, I advised her to take extra care of herself. Although she wasn't too old to have a baby, she wasn't as youthful and energetic as before. I suggested we attend her upcoming doctor's appointment together. I was eager to witness the progress of our new little blessing firsthand. About a month later, we attended the next appointment, and according to the ultrasound, everything was progressing smoothly with the baby. Experiencing the ultrasound for the first time made everything feel incredibly real. It was both amazing and a bit surreal to see our child on the screen while my wife wiped off the ultrasound gel. I couldn't help but express my concerns to the doctor. While I was thrilled about the late addition to our family, I couldn't shake off a sense of worry. I asked if it was safe for us to have a due date at our age and if there were any precautions we should consider given our circumstances. The doctor couldn't provide an exact date until the next checkup but estimated it to be sometime in the last few days of August or early September. I thanked the doctor and nurses before heading home. Upon returning, I marked those days on the calendar and made a list of tasks to prepare for the baby's arrival. However, something didn't seem right. It was March, and our night together had happened just a month earlier. How could her due date possibly be in August? I shared my concern with my wife, pointing out that the doctor's estimation seemed off. She brushed it off, mentioning that it wasn't uncommon for women her age to give birth a little earlier than usual. But even then, having the baby arrive just 6 or 7 months later was still much too early. While I understood that some babies are born before the standard 9-month period, a birth at 7 months usually indicates complications or an emergency situation. It was baffling to think a doctor would predict such an early arrival for our baby. I decided to revisit the doctor to address my concerns. I mentioned that upon reflection, I found it puzzling that our baby's due date was just 7 months away. I understood that my wife was older, and sometimes older women give birth early, but it felt too quick. The doctor assured me that, for now, the baby appeared healthy. He explained that my wife was in her 16th week of pregnancy, and there was a chance the baby might come earlier if things continued progressing as they were. He reassured me there was no need to be concerned. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. It felt like a light bulb moment. I had suspected something was off, and this confirmed it. My wife and I were together just a month ago. How could she be 16 weeks pregnant already? It didn't add up. Grateful for the doctor's explanation, I left to head back home, my mind spinning with thoughts. During the drive, a heavy feeling engulfed me. It was as if all the energy had been drained out of me when the doctor mentioned the due date. Slowly, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. I realized what might have happened. My wife lost her rationality when she believed she had caught me in an affair. Whether it was an attempt to retaliate or she thought she was in a temporary free zone, around the time she accused me, she might have actually engaged in an affair herself. It was as if she wanted to even the score. Feeling the need to confront my wife about my discovery, I wanted to know who the other person involved was. The following day, while we were looking after our grandson, she asked me to play a song for him using my phone as we played together. Admitting my lack of knowledge on the matter, I asked her to handle it. In response, she shook her head, unlocked her phone, and played some cheerful children's music. Knowing my wife's usual routine, I anticipated she would be going out soon. As she left the room, I seized the opportunity to check her phone. Scrolling through her recent call history, I noted down the names and numbers I saw. Opening her text messages, I came across a conversation with a man named Daniel that caught my attention. They had been discussing the baby extensively, and my wife had even sent him a photo of the ultrasound. His response expressed concern about her having a baby at her age. She assured him that she was fully committed to having the baby and raising it on her own. Putting down her phone just as she re-entered the room, I pretended everything was normal. Once she left the house, I placed Robbie in his baby carrier and stepped out to trail my wife and find out where she was headed. Thankfully, she was walking and hadn't taken the car. She mentioned she was going to the nearby butcher shop. From a distance, I observed her entering the shop. However, when I peeked inside, I didn't see anyone, despite having seen her enter. Realizing I couldn't just barge in and blow my cover, I tiptoed up to the window and peered inside. To my surprise, I noticed my wife peeking her head out from what seemed to be an office. Swiftly, I pushed open the door, and inside, I found my wife lying on a bed covered with a blanket. Demanding answers, I insisted she come out. The butcher, who appeared to be in his 40s, emerged from the back, looking a bit out of breath. I confronted my wife, demanding an explanation for what was happening. The butcher, shocked by my sudden appearance, turned to my wife and urged her to come out. With a sense of urgency, he exclaimed, "It's your husband. You need to come out right now." Turning to my wife once more, I demanded an explanation for the situation. "What's happening here? Explain yourself. Why are you here?" I questioned. In response, she claimed that she had merely come to the butcher's shop to buy some meat and somehow ended up in the room where I found her. This explanation didn't satisfy me in the least. "That doesn't make sense. You need to come out and bring Robbie home immediately," I insisted. Once my wife left the room, I shifted my focus to the butcher, ready to interrogate him. "What's really going on here? Don't even try to lie," I warned. "I'm aware that my wife is pregnant with your child. If you don't tell me the truth, I'll call my son down here, and we'll get the answers out of you one way or another." The butcher hesitated at first, but eventually, he began to explain. As it turned out, my wife had been a regular customer at his shop. He revealed that he had recently gone through a divorce, and my wife had been trying to support him through this difficult time. Over 2 years ago, their connection deepened, and it eventually led to her becoming pregnant. He admitted that he hadn't planned for things to turn out this way, and he was now uncertain about what steps to take next. Furthermore, he disclosed that there was another woman he was in a relationship with, someone he had been considering marrying. However, his plans changed drastically when he found out about my wife's pregnancy. Now, he was at a crossroads, unsure of how to proceed. Left standing there, I was utterly speechless, processing the shocking revelations. It's quite a twist, isn't it? My wife tried to shame me, accusing me of having an affair, while all along, she was the one actually cheating. A 50-year-old woman having an affair and getting pregnant, it's hard to believe, right? And to make matters more unbelievable, it was with a 40-year-old divorced butcher. My wife must have enjoyed the attention from a much younger man, even if he wasn't solely interested in her. Unfortunately, their secret world came crashing down unexpectedly. It's something I never would have imagined in a million years. I waited outside my house until my daughter-in-law finished her work and arrived to pick up Robbie. Once she got there, I welcomed her inside the house. My wife's mood shifted as soon as she spotted us entering the house. I proceeded to share everything with my daughter-in-law, recounting the entire story the butcher had told me, the affair, my wife's pregnancy, and her attempt to deceive me into believing the child was mine. I held nothing back, laying out the unvarnished truth about the situation. I confessed that I had let many things slide over the years, enduring more than I cared to discuss, but this was a breaking point. I couldn't allow her actions to go unaddressed. She displayed clear signs of being a psychopath. Enough is enough. I've reached my limit. I'm considering getting a divorce. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to mention, the butcher is planning to marry the other woman he was involved with. I don't believe your mother is aware of this, though. While I was speaking, my wife had been listening from the other room. It appeared she wasn't aware of the butcher's plan to marry the other woman. In response, she promptly dialed him, and I overheard her saying, "You promised we'd be together. We agreed to start our life after the baby's born and I get divorced. What happened to that?" She shamelessly aired all of this in front of my daughter-in-law. At least now, the truth was out in the open. My wife and I ended up divorcing not long afterward. Several months down the line, she gave birth to the baby. Word on the street suggests that the butcher never truly ended his relationship with the other woman. This sparked a major showdown between him and my wife. He led her to believe they'd start anew once the baby was born, but the truth painted a different picture. At 50 years old, she found herself divorced with a newborn and no support. It left her uncertain about the next steps to take. Most folks find contentment in their settled lives, but my wife took a different route. She tried to control everyone around her, acted selfishly, and chased her own desires. And this is where it all led. These days, I spend my time with my delightful grandson, living modestly on the retirement savings I've amassed. Furthermore, I've taken legal action against the butcher for his affair with my wife, which led to our divorce. It shouldn't be long before I receive compensation for his actions. I plan to care for my grandson until he's ready for preschool. After that, I'm considering finding a new partner, a companion with whom I can explore, indulge in delicious meals, and make the most of my time. I appreciate you sticking with my tale till the end. I hope all of you are leading happy and healthy lives.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and click on the little bell icon for notifications of new stories.